What's up, guys? Welcome to GoJo and Golic. It is your girl, Jessie Cofield. We got a great show for you today. Here is what is going to be coming up. Stay tuned for all this. So we have JT Gray, Saints special team captain. He's going to be joining the program. Then Pat Kavanaugh, Notre Dame lacrosse champ, 2 times. That's 2 times. We're going to chat with him. And going deep, we're going to rank all-star activities. Do you need the big names to draw in the viewers? We will discuss all that and more on today's show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and the aforementioned Jessie Cofield here. We got a great show for everybody, as always. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review it. Leave us a 5-star rating, and check us out here live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings network. It is going to be a fun one today. Obviously, selfishly, very excited for the Pat Kavanaugh experience to be making its way. The man in the family that changed the course of the program. We're going to have a good old-fashioned lax-off today, by the way, because I don't know if many people are familiar. Maybe they've forgotten while you were on maternity leave. Jessie Cofield, proud member of the Boston College women's lax dynasty over there. Yep. And so Jessie, as soon as this got brought up, was ready and raring to remind people that the Golden Eagles have been out here doing their thing. Did you guys win it this year? I forget. You guys came back against Northwestern and won it again this year, right?
Sure did.
Yeah.
Sure did. Yeah. And that one, I mean, the BC Lax group chat was going wild during that game. We went down 6-0 within like 6 minutes, and we were all like, well, see you next year. But no, they came back and won.
That was a great game. What a comeback that was. Northwestern's been so dominant, you thought, okay, they're just going to roll here. That was a fantastic game. That really was.
The goalie, Shea Dolce, was incredible, and there was an incredible call on that game where he was like, living la Dolce Vita, and we were all just like, okay.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
There is nothing better than being an announcer and having one in your hip pocket, because I had a teammate in college who played running back, and in a game, a linebacker came and blitzed, and he cut him down right at the knees, absolutely sawed him off in the game. And so the next week, our linebacker came back, the running back went to do that, and he leapfrogged right over him and got the sack. And when we asked him about it after, he goes, I knew I was jumping over him on Tuesday of that week. Like, you had seen it in film prep. You knew it was coming. For a broadcaster, it's that same feeling. When you get handed a name like Dolce, you know early in that week, oh, I got a call for him there. And so making sure you don't fumble the bag on something like that. Dad, I'm sure over the years, given your propensity to mess up words, you've butchered more than a few of those.
Oh, I butchered way more than a few. And that's the one thing you don't want to butcher is somebody's name. But I remember that game, Jessie. She had a great kick save.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a great time for a kick save and a dandy. That wasn't used there. They could have been used. You have your opportunities. But play-by-play people are always usually so prepared in that situation with a name or a situation.
I think the kick save was when he made that call. So, yeah.
I think so. It was an incredible save. Incredible job.
Being down 6-0 in a title game, wouldn't know anything about that, considering the Pat Kavanaugh-led Notre Dame buzzsaw just refused to yield any ground ever during the course of one of the best seasons of my entire life. So, what, Dad?
Real quick, you don't know what it's like down 6-0, but you knew what it was like to be down like 28-0, though, right?
Oh. All right, see, there was no reason to bring that up. Like, wow.
Yeah, I thought that's where you were going, actually, when you started talking. I thought you were going to have a sarcastic, like, I wouldn't know anything about that, because you do know.
I did too, and since he didn't, I figure I would.
Yeah, good call, Senior.
We were talking about the sport of lacrosse, which Notre Dame is a lacrosse school and a fencing school. And so I don't know why you're bringing up, there you go again, bringing up old stuff here, when we had the chance to talk about something far more new and far more pressing here, because we spent all this time yesterday, will they, won't they, supposing about the effect that someone named Paul George could have on the Philadelphia 76ers. And it was so interesting as we talked about the impact of both him leaving the Los Angeles Clippers, joining the Philadelphia 76ers, and then now in this day and age of player-led media, we immediately got the veil lifted and got a window into the process that actually got him here. Paul George, who now was probably the biggest move of this NBA offseason thus far, and based on what's left on the table, probably will continue to be the biggest move of the offseason. He went on his Podcast P with Paul George, and actually opened up about the negotiations between him and the Los Angeles Clippers that led to this moment. Take a listen.
When negotiations first started, and it was 260. And as we kept going, it was like, they would go up, inches, to where it was like 44, 45, right? But this was like a couple months in between before we got it to 40 something. So I'm still like, nah, I'm not doing that. Now we at the end of the year, 3 years, 150. So I'm like, all right, like now we're in a ballpark. You know what I mean? Now we can have conversation here. And again, it still wasn't about the money, because when I went back to have the negotiation at the end of the year, I presented the 150 no trade. Because in the meeting, they're like, we want you here long term. We want to, when you're retired, we want you to be a Clippers for a lifetime, like all of this stuff. We want you to be here. We want you to be a Clippers your whole career. So I'm like, cool. Give me the 3 years, 150, no trade then. Like no trade clause. Then I'm taking less, but at least I know I'm here. Mm-hmm. Like I'm committed to y'all. Like they didn't want to do the no trade.
Do that?
Wow.
So going through and working through the timeline here, Paul George saying, Dad, that during the season, and that was the part before this clip, the Clippers came to him and offered him the first offer, in his words, were 2 years and $60 million before the season. Then going through the year, inched all the way up. And his sticking point was, all right, just pay me what you're going to pay Kawhi Leonard, who signed that 3-year, $151 million deal in about January of this season, when things were going really well for the Clippers. They were 16-3 at that point in time. Kawhi Leonard was healthier than he'd been. We talked about that a lot. And when it came up to that, he wanted the security of the no trade clause that only two players in the NBA have right now, in LeBron James and Bradley Beal. And the Clippers balk. They publicly brought up that second apron we talked about yesterday. And so, Dad, how valid? We always talk about it's not business, it's personal stuff. But Paul George basically saying he felt slighted enough by the way that this all went down to where he decided to look for greener pastures here. How much should the Clippers regret this?
As much as you try, and that's when I talk to younger players after I was out, I would always try and say, don't make it personal. Because I did at the end of my free agent, or when I was a free agent from Philly going to Miami, without getting into the minutia of the deal, I made it personal. And it's the wrong thing to do, but it's easy to say it's the wrong thing to do because you hear all that. 2 for 2 years, 30 million. Then they were getting to 40, 45 million. Then they finally got to 3 for 150 for 50 million. But he throws in there, it's not about the money. So anybody who's listening is saying, well, yes, it is about the money, but it's also about the money, but it's tied to the taking it personal of pay me what you're paying the other superstars in this league. I'm not worth less than them. I want as much as them. Given the fact that when Kawhi Leonard in January signed the 3 for 151, and when that's what he then wanted, he said, I think I could have been worth more, but I'll take that. You say Kawhi and I are on the same level, so pay me what you're paying him, but I want a no trade because he's from LA. He wanted to know he was going to be there. And he said, if you're not going to give me a no trade, I want the 4 for 212, knowing that if you do trade me, I got the deal that I wanted when I have to move somewhere else. So I agree. It's not always about the money. It's about the respect, and, I'm doing the air quotes thing, a respect of pay me what you're paying the other top players because you consider me one of the top players, but it's all tied in together because, it is technically at the end of the day about the money. It's just tough for a regular person to hear 30 million a year, 45 million a year, but I want 50 million a year because that's what this guy's getting, but it's not about the money. It rings hollow to a lot of people. We get it because we deal with this every day and what players are going through. The whole thing here, Mike, is the bottom line. We get to this over and over and over and over and over again. It's a business. And now with the CBA throwing in that second apron and what it can do to you and how bad it can hurt you. And if he'd have signed the 3 for $150 with the no trade, I believe they would have got nailed for 2 years over that apron, which brings even stiffer penalties. So so it turned out to be his deal that would have triggered that after they gave James Harden the 2 for $70 deal.
Well, I guess here's the thing, though, is for the Clippers, who remember, before Paul George got traded to the 76 or signed with the 76ers, the Clippers came out with that weird announcement that they weren't re-signing Paul George. Right. And they cited the second apron as a reason why. If they had, if they offered him the 3-150 without a no trade clause, if he'd have signed that, they'd have been into the separate apron. So they were willing to go into the second apron at the price that they had already offered him, and yet tried to sell that as a reason why they weren't going to do this on the back end. It's just not true at that point. Then you were willing to dip a toe in those waters. What this really signaled is you only liked Paul George so much at this juncture with the team. And Dad, a lot like we've talked about the Dallas Cowboys this offseason, where the lack of willingness to extend Dak Prescott, given the number that he counts against your cap, to me looks like an indictment of how that organization views their team's championship window right now, what they believe that team is capable of. I think the same thing is true for the Clippers. I think they believe that this roster is past its prime and past its championship window. And listen, looking at the results, I mean, in the time they had Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, they won 3 playoff series in 5 years, and they haven't won a single playoff series since the 2021 postseason. So going into this year, Paul George, who was blown away in a negative sense by that 2-year, $60 million offer, I think at that point, listen, Paul George followed it up with, we talked about it yesterday, one of his most efficient seasons of record.
Yes.
I think he played the most games he played in a Clippers uniform with 74 this last year since he arrived there. All these things that went well for him after the fact. Before that, it had been largely disappointment before the Clippers spent the majority of this season as contenders. So part of me can kind of understand why the Clippers before the season weren't in a rush to throw money hand over foot at this guy.
Yeah, and once you get to the point of in the area of what you're going to pay him, you start off with 2 for $60. You're not paying that, and then to say, okay, we'll pay you what we paid Kawhi, but then he wants the no trade. That seemed to be the kicker for the Clippers saying no on this thing. To me, in all honesty, the Clippers should have broken this thing up. I mean, I wouldn't have paid Harden that either to bring him back. These were 4 older guys on this team, throwing Russell Westbrook, that I don't think was going to do any more this next year. And now you lost one of the key, as you said, one of his most efficient seasons he's ever had. You had Kawhi already because you signed him in January to that extension. So you knew you were going to have him. And boy, how that changed, right? Things are going well. Just as you mentioned, he's healthy. Things are going well. He signs the extension. Then as the season goes on, there it is again. Kawhi missing time because of an injury. So I'm sure Steve Ballmer is like, damn, I mean, you did what you should do and to sign him when things are going well. I get it. But now you're tinkering with a group of players to try and get over the hump who are all older, and you're trying to massage that, and then without going in, past the second apron and getting yourself nailed. And Paul George just happened to be at the apex of that, right? He was kind of the turning stone to take them over that apron. So he kind of got nailed because he was last, right? Because they did Harden, they did Kawhi in January.
Again, I don't think the apron is a real part of this conversation at all, because again, they wanted him back at 3 for $150, and that would have put them into the second apron. I believe, based on what I'm reading, Zach Lowe did a great write-up on how all of this would affect them, and they were willing and comfortable to do it there, just not at a price beyond that, just not without the flexibility of, hey, if we want to be able to trade you, if this goes south in a year, we want a movable contract. Hey, we don't want to go into 4 years with the kind of money that it would cost you there. So to me, again, this is more about their belief in Paul George and the core of this roster. But Dad, you brought up something interesting with Steve Ballmer, is there's always the team building part of this where it's, hey, recognizing what the roster is, but then there's the reality of the larger context of this Clippers team. And it's so funny. When I was on vacation, a buddy of mine I was traveling with asked me, he's like, how long before Steve Ballmer, with all his money, with the Intuit Dome opening up this fall, how long before he's able to make this Los Angeles' team? And my answer was simple. And this is, I've talked to people that have lived in Los Angeles their whole life, basketball fans, is never. It will never be a Clippers town because of what this Lakers franchise has already been, because of the nature of Los Angeles fans. But, Dad, it is interesting that Steve Ballmer would choose to do this at this juncture, because you're trying to put butts in seats in this big new arena that you just built up that's going to open up this fall. You're trying to convince a fan base in Los Angeles that already has plenty of other sports to watch, events to watch, things to do, because it's sunny in Los Angeles and there's plenty going on. And we hear the rap that LA sports fans get. But I'm a little bit stunned, Dad, that Steve Ballmer didn't spend bad money after good just in the name of trying to give people a sell of, hey, when this core was healthy last year, we were third, second in the Western Conference for a large stretch. This is why you should come and fill my expensive new arena with all of your business, and instead go this route where he's basically waving the white flag before the season gets started.
Yeah, he is. But, again, he's a businessman, and there's and I'm sure he has business people around him explaining the situation and going forward. And at some point, it does become a business more than, what am I giving the fans? Because I believe he still thinks the fans are going to show up because it's going to be a new arena. I don't know. Listen, I'd love to be in the position of being a billionaire and trying to decide things like that. You're right about the Clippers never being. Clippers could win a title and Lakers could be like, great, we have 17 of them. Look at all the banners in our thing. So, yeah, Clippers are never becoming the team in LA. I get that. And I understand what you're saying. You're opening a new arena, give the fans a reason to show up, give them these stars that are there. I was a little surprised, in all honesty, because from his talk there, it all sounded like, remember, he's from there, that he wanted to stay there, that's where he wanted to be. So just appease him there. And you're right. I mean, if they were willing to do that and they were willing to hit that second apron, which would have been for a couple of years, and they would have got nailed with it, then I don't understand why they didn't follow through. But obviously it is because of what you said. If in a year or in 2 years it wasn't working, they wanted the ability to move that contract, because that's one of the things you see happen in the NBA, which can get so complicated with their deals about moving contracts. And these are big contracts that you would try and move at some point as you're trying to rebuild. But obviously with the no trade, and as you mentioned, just 2 players have it. He would have been the third. That all of a sudden locks you in. And that's somewhere they didn't want to be.
And listen, Paul George is going to be 38 at the end of this deal for the 76ers. Exactly. So it is certainly not without some level of risk on their part. There's and I understand we're in the LeBron James world still, where this guy is playing, into his 40s and still playing very compelling basketball. But for the rest of humanity, and for Paul George, who's always been a very good player to great player at times, but it's been fleeting. It hasn't quite been in the same ways. Him at 38 is probably not going to be the answer. But again, these are different situations for everybody, right? Where if you're the 76ers right now, and we don't have time to run the sound here, so I won't get into it, but Joel Embiid, in an article Tim Bontemps posted yesterday, basically said when things were going down with James Harden and Daryl Morey's trying to sell him on, hey, we're going to get rid of him, but we're going to get assets back to make a move like this. Dad, you can understand why their desperation, because Joel Embiid's even saying out loud, I was told to be patient and I wasn't sure I could buy it at this point. I wasn't sure if my patience was going to get rewarded. They are a desperate team over there. And so in their desperation, they've got to throw this money out there, because they're in a window with a player in Joel Embiid that they have poured into for years now and recognize we probably don't have all the time left with.
Yeah, Daryl Morey, the president there, asked Embiid to be patient, basically saying, we know we're going to have to trade Harden and we're going to get back expiring contracts. We're going to get draft capital in return. So be patient. This is going to happen. This is what we're going to get back. And then we're going to be able to bring somebody in, i.e. now Paul George, to help. So that part of it worked. Now it's just, can it work on the court, right? Can these three work together on the court? Because we've seen things like this work, and we've, for the most part, seen things like this not work. So Daryl Morey was right. They got themselves in a position to get a star, and they did, albeit a 34-year-old one, but that's what you're looking for right now. You're looking for this to happen in the next couple of years because, as I mentioned, Joel Embiid is 4 years chronologically younger than Paul George, but he's older than Paul George body-wise, with some of the injuries that he's had. So, as I've said before, it's about making hay now.
Yes, it is, and the 76ers have a chance to do that, and the Clippers have a lot of time to figure out their stuff before the opening of that beautiful new stadium that's not all that far from where I live, and I'm excited to check out on a good day. So maybe that fascination is enough for Steve Ballmer to get everybody there. We got plenty more coming up, certainly on the NBA front, but coming up next, let's take a look at one team that has been the center of every bit of offseason drama the NFL can muster and decided to spill that tea over on the timeline yesterday. Next, you're on GoJo and Golic. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield. And before we get to more drama in Cowboys land here, past and present Cowboys wideouts beefing on the timeline makes my heart really, really sing. And some very interesting Dak Prescott props heading into a really chaotic season in Big D. Guys, it feels like all of the complaining that we did about the lack of juice around the 2024 NBA draft is going to be rewarded next year. Have you guys seen these clips of Cooper Flagg at Team USA basketball camp right now? This kid seems like he is going to give us every bit of the fun this college basketball season. He's 17 years old, Dad, going up against Drew Holiday and all of these great defenders at Team USA camp right now, and looks like he belongs. It's terrifying.
Yeah, he's not going to be 18 until December. He's a child.
So again, they get a select team to practice with the Olympic team, and the last time they got college guys was it was Doug McDermott and Marcus Smart. Now the difference is these guys were both already playing in college. Marcus Smart had come off being, I believe, the Big 12 Freshman of the Year. This guy has played 0 minutes in college. I watched him play in the McDonald's All-American game, and he is just absolutely the real deal. He's from Maine, Mount Verde Academy. They went 30-0. They were the national #1 team in the country. He won all the awards as Player of the Year, and he basically didn't even flinch didn't even flinch playing against these guys. You can watch the highlights, the guys talking about him after, just rave reviews of just coming in and not giving a damn that it was Anthony Davis he was shooting a three over, or, all the other guys that he was out rebounding or slamming over. I mean, it was incredible to watch. So he chose Duke over UConn, as UConn's going for the three-peat. He went to Duke, where Duke lost their 4 leading scorers. So we'll see where that's going to go. But it's just about him getting whatever NIL money he's getting this year, which is going to pale in comparison to what he's going to be getting eventually at the next level if he pans out. Because right now, we always say, well, let's wait and see what they do. This guy went up against some of the best in the NBA and did not even blink. So that's pretty impressive.
This setup is a coup for men's college basketball that had a big-time star problem last year. Even with veteran players, tenured players, you had a budding dynasty in UConn that's now a full-blown dynasty. You had Zach Edey, who'd been there forever, and no one really seemed to care. Now you're going to have much-watch TV, and you've had the perfect jumping-off point, which is, hey, look at Team USA, all of our best stars, this roster that we're comparing to like the Dream Team and stuff. And here's this 17-year-old that's never played a lick of college basketball who goes in and looks like he belongs. It is the perfect timing and the perfect antidote for what we saw going on last year. So very excited for that, and excited to see if people are going to hate him or not. He seems like the archetypal Duke hateable white villain.
I was going to say,
and
Duke.
We'll see.
Of course it's Duke.
Yeah. He tripped somebody.
It's too perfect. It's too, the first time it happens, and I wonder if that's just a spirit that jumps into you once you walk on campus, if you've got the caucasity enough to where it just enters you, and all of a sudden you don't even realize, and you've kicked someone in the nuts, and now the rest of your legacy is written out before you there. So we'll wait and see what happens with Cooper Flagg here. Jesse, we mentioned the Cowboys. Little whiteout on whiteout violence on the timeline the other day. This is something.
Yeah, why is Cole Beasley out there shaming CeeDee Lamb's workouts? I have a question for you guys. When I saw this on the internet and I saw that he's getting workout shamed, the first question that popped into my mind was, how did this even happen? Why do we have cowboy on cowboy crime at this point? Don't you think that these guys have been through enough? Why do they have to have cowboy on cowboy crime?
Well, I think because Cole Beasley doesn't care about anybody else in this equation here. And for anyone that missed it, a video of CeeDee Lamb working out this offseason got tweeted by Cole Beasley, who said, man, just do some heavy squats and power cleans. People started shading Cole Beasley, and he basically tried to make the point that CeeDee Lamb was a stat accumulator. He was someone who had just gotten a lot of targets and said, if you gave me 180 targets off the couch, I'd eclipse 1,000 yards. Stop looking at stats and check the tape as far as getting open goes. I'm confident I did that with the best of them. And CeeDee Lamb popped back and said, I don't need 180 targets to touch a band. Pull up tape. I'd match you route for route on getting open. Just chill. And Dad, listen, it's not really an argument. Everybody knows CeeDee Lamb is the markedly better player of the two. Cole Beasley is more known at this point for having a brief rap career and then having a bunch of opinions about COVID-19. But it's just wild that this keeps happening to the same team in Dallas.
I just love how it came back when people were just ripping Beasley for this, saying you've never had a 1,000-yard season, and he actually chimed back. I was at 900 and some yards and I missed the last game because of injury. He's like, okay, congratulations. You might have eked over 1,000 yards for a season. I mean, are you kidding me? You want to talk about route running or just the availability? I mean, it's a production league, man. And CeeDee Lamb is this isn't even an argument. This is ridiculous. Why Cole Beasley would choose to do this, I have zero idea. I have no idea what he is trying to gain. I didn't go through all the responses. I can't imagine there's one outside of, and I don't even think Cole Beasley's family would be on his side, that was actually on the side of Cole Beasley on this one, saying, yeah, Cole, you're right. You would have as many targets as CeeDee Lamb would. You would be the man, if you had that many targets. This is one of the more, we see Twitter beef all the time. I don't even call this Twitter beef. This is like saying that you can't have a rivalry because one's a hammer and one's a nail. You know, this is that category of situation.
Also, stop looking at stats and check the tape. It's like, well, we put a lot of stock in stats here. Like, what do you mean, stop looking at stats? We're not going to do that.
It's all ridiculous. And that's why I was able to laugh this off and instead focus on what was more, I think, of the brief existential dread for Cowboys fans, which was seeing Dak Prescott briefly in a walking boot while he was on vacation. These poor quarterbacks, man. You can't be on a beach anywhere without people finding a way to make it a story. Now, thankfully, it seems like it was all much ado about nothing. It was supposedly a mild sprain, and he was out of the walking boot before we knew it. So we'll keep an eye on it, Dad. But for Dak Prescott going into this season, obviously, injury seems to be the only thing that can undermine this dude. I was looking at it yesterday. Dak Prescott, the over-under for his passing yards going into this year, 4,150 and a half yards heading into this season. Every season, Dad, that Dak Prescott, the last 3 times that he has played every game of the season, he's gone well over that number here. This seems like free money for Dak Prescott, provided that this foot injury is actually nothing to write home about.
They don't have a running game either. I would fly to the over on this. I mean, they've been...
And it's juiced to the under. Like, this is juiced to the under. It's minus 125 to go under that and plus 105 to go over. It's incredible.
I'm stunned at this because they had a running game. It was just Zeke and then Zeke and then Pollard, but that didn't obviously work out. Now he's gone and Zeke's back, but Zeke can't carry the load. The running game is going to take a monster hit here, so it's going to be passing, and we've seen Dak already do that. So I would fly to the over on this without question, provided, again, the foot is going to be okay, and I'd imagine it's going to be. Yeah, this wouldn't even be a question for me.
Each of the last 3 non-COVID shortened seasons where Dak has started every game, he has eclipsed this total handily. He eclipsed it last year. Dad, the amazing thing to me, if you look on DraftKings Sportsbook at the Cowboys team props, you get better odds on the Dallas Cowboys to win 14 or more regular season games. Something they haven't done in the last 3 years, where they've won 12 games every year, and it's very impressive. But looking at the roster this season, you can get better odds at plus 700 for them to win, so we'd say 15 games, than you would for Dak Prescott to go over 5,000 yards passing in the regular season at plus 1,200. That is insane to me. Obviously, both of those are long shot bets, but if you're asking me to stake the mortgage on one, it's Dak going over $5,000, and it's in a heartbeat compared to that.
Yeah.
So,
and I actually think they're going to have a bit of a down year, but to your point, 2021, 16 games, 4,400 yards. 2019, 16 games, 4,900 yards, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. So, yeah, that's an over for me, dog.
That one is definitely going to be an over. And so we've certainly got that drama in Big D. But coming up next, we've got plenty of drama heading into the NFC South this season. We'll get one of the Saints captains to stop by and take a look towards it next here on GoJo and Golic. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Dad, Jesse, we talked a lot about the Cowboys' interesting situation with Dak Prescott a lot this offseason. They have been one of the in vogue teams to mention with that, but they're not the only ones with drama at the position. The New Orleans Saints heading into year 2 with Derek Carr and a lot of interesting confusion in the boot about the future of this team. And Jesse, it doesn't appear that the odds makers over at DK Sportsbook have all that much faith in Carr or the Saints.
Yeah, guys, Saints, as you can see here, plus 340 to win the division. You got the Falcons down to minus 115 with the addition of Kirk Cousins. Probably can't really count out the Bucks or Panthers at any point here either. And yesterday after the show, you had a chance to catch up with the Saints special teams captain, JT Gray, to talk about the upcoming season and get into some of this stuff here.
All right, we're counting down the days until training camp. Well, we are, because we don't have to actually go out there and put on pads and hit anyone. For guys like our next guest, JT Gray, Saints safety, all-pro, and special teams captain, kind enough to join us. Now, JT, I'd imagine you're probably counting the days in a very different way until training camp at this point.
I would say I'm ready to roll. You know what I mean? I've been training, getting it in right now, preparing myself to go in for a healthy, successful camp, and looking for a great season.
All right, there we go. So dial that. I mean, you got to imagine you get to a point in the offseason where it's just time to go, right? It's fun being home. I know you just had a camp back in your hometown, which I certainly want to hear about, which is awesome, and all the offseason projects. But at some point, you probably get that moment where it's time to just play ball.
Yeah, sometimes. For the most part, during the off season, get your training in. You have your schedule set to just, you know what I'm saying, chill. You got your family time. You have your serious time, and you know what I mean. Just having that balance to get ready for the training camp is most important.
Well, I just wanted to ask what the offseason's been like for you so far. You guys go through the offseason activities at the facility there. A big year coming up for you guys. What's been the message from Dennis Allen and this coaching staff heading into a big year?
The message this year has been smart, fast, physical. You know what I mean? And that's how he wants his players to come in, know the playbook, go out there, be relentless, and take care of your job.
Well, your job, and something you've done incredibly well at an all-pro level at times, has been on special teams for this team. And we know this season coming up, a lot of rule changes, especially with the kickoff here. So how did that impact the way you guys went to work and starting to analyze how different that phase of the game is going to be this year?
That's going to be pretty interesting this year to do. Right now, we've been transitioning to the phase, implementing in with our with the players and all of us on how we do our drills, and I feel like it's going to add value to the game, and I feel like it's going to make the game more important. The first play of the game is going to be more important, and it's going to be interesting to get the crowd involved in it too.
Yeah, no doubt. Making kickoffs an exciting, meaningful play in football again, I think is something a lot of people are looking forward to here. In terms of looking forward towards this season, you've been here through the transition for the Saints from one staff to another now, even though Dennis Allen was the defensive coordinator before, and one quarterback to another from Drew Brees to Derek Carr. So in your mind, what's got to happen this season for you guys to take that next step and get back to the playoffs where Saints fans, and I'm sure for you guys as players, you're used to being?
I feel like we just got to take the next step to continue to have a good group of guys in the locker room, to continue to have that leadership that we've been having over the years, and continue to, just progress off of that and work off one another.
Speaking of leadership, Derek Carr now going into his second season there. What stuck out to you about him as a leader and as a player for your guys' team?
Derek Carr has been a very vocal leader since day one. He comes in and he's, talk to the guys. He's a very open guy, very well to, communicate with. And, he's just bringing that great energy and positive energy around the guys, and the guys just easily just rally on to him.
And for Dennis Allen, I mentioned the context for him, was the defensive coordinator there before. You knew him in one light here. What has his transition to head coach these last couple of seasons been like, and how has he changed to fit that role?
He's been had those qualities on him. to become a head coach, just me coming from a rookie to me, that's going on year 7 now, he's been detailed on everything that he's been doing, and he's making sure that he's turning over every stone and dotting every I, crossing every T, and you know what I'm saying, that's been productive on his end and helping the Saints continue to grow as a team.
For you guys, obviously, the goal for every team starts with win your division. I'm curious for you and for your teammates, have you been surprised how quickly people have jumped on the Falcons bandwagon this offseason? They bring Kirk Cousins over. There's a lot of fanfare there, and it seems like people are really ready to hand them the division. Does that surprise you at all?
I haven't been paying attention to that necessarily, but I feel like we're going to go in, we're going to do our thing, and most importantly, we just focus on us and focus on winning the division. People are going to choose where they want to go, but, you know.
There you go. All you guys can do is focus on you. I'm 100% with you there. Obviously, your energy's turned towards that now, but I know this offseason, a couple weeks back, you had your 3rd annual Backyard Dogs Youth Football Camp in your hometown, and you also started a mental mindset program with mental health as a cause that's been near and dear to you for a while. So why has giving back in that way been something that, as you become a veteran player now, been so important to you?
I want to say, being in the league, you know, it's a mental strain, and you have to be mentally prepared at a high level every day for about 7 months throughout the season. And even when you're training, you have to be mentally prepared, and you have to mentally strain. And sometimes, you know what I'm saying, you want to just turn your brain off, and it could be mentally taxing on you. And to be able to provide that resources for everyone that even works, you know what I'm saying, everybody works jobs from 9 to 5. They're mentally strained when they're at work. And when they get off, they don't know how to stop mentally straining. And if you continue to mentally strain your muscles all the time, it's like working out. If you strain your muscles over and over and over again, like your muscles are going to become sore. You're going to overuse them. You can pull something. And you know what I'm saying, just creating a space to turn those muscles off and relax them, and creating a balance within your mental. That's where I come in at, and want to be able to create that space for guys, of people, to be able to do that and provide resources for them to help them out, because everybody should have a helping hand available, and that's what I'm working on.
Was there like a vet that pulled you aside and helped you with that? Was there a moment where you were dealing with some of the mental strain that comes with playing this game at the highest level the way you have?
Yeah, I've talked to guys that's done it for a long time, and I wanted to check on their mental to see how they feel, because, you know, I was a guy that coming in undrafted, I was already in a mentally strained position, and just going in and coming in not knowing or being unsure, you know, that could be mentally taxing. You're worrying about the things that really you don't need to worry about. And that's what I was doing when I was in my younger days. And just asking those guys and learning from them helped me calm down and helped me get my mental right, and to focus on the most important thing was being productive out there in the field. And that's what helped me.
It's a huge part of the game. And like you said, life, just forgetting not even football players, but people living their everyday life, to make sure that they've got some place to go and the resources to help them out with that. So it's an incredible cause, and you're doing a great job to try and help many people out with that. We appreciate the time, JT. Thank you so much for all the information today, and best of luck this upcoming season, man. We're excited to watch you guys go out there and do your thing.
Man, I appreciate you, GoJo.
All right, welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Dad brought it up yesterday as we were going for our all-week off team. Major League Baseball announced 32 first-time MLB All-Stars yesterday, and slowly we're starting to get the leaks and the full picture of everything coming up for All-Star Weekend, including the Home Run Derby. No surprise to anyone, Pete Alonso wants to come back and win his third title here. The Polar Bear, it's just like you keep him locked in a cage until it's time for the Home Run Derby, and then he comes out and is deadlifting in the dugout, getting ready to crush dingers. So excited for him to explore his real passion, but you've also got Gunnar Henderson there, Bobby Witt Jr., Alex Baum, Marcell Ozuna, all agreeing to go to the All-Star Major League Baseball Home Run Derby. Now, we're still waiting on the other 3 participant in the 8-participant field. And Dad, as usual, we've got some rule tweaks for the All-Star Contest Home Run Derby this year. Now, it's not totally different here. It's still 3 minutes for the first and second rounds, but now they've put a pitch maximum on it. You can only see a maximum of 40 pitches in those first 2 rounds, and then in the final round, it's either 2 minutes or a maximum of 27 pitches, whichever comes first. But the real big one is now that first round, instead of it being knockout style where it's 1 versus 8 and 2 versus 7, everybody's going to go and hit home runs. The top 4 are going to move on. And from there, then they're going to seed them. And then it's going to be knockout style competition there. So it hasn't fully overhauled it yet. But Dad, where are you at? We were talking about this off air, how much social media has sort of changed the consumption of events like this. Do you still watch the Home Run Derby? It's something that I'd imagine meant a lot more to your generation than it did to mine necessarily.
Yeah. I still watch it. I mean, it's kind of like the slam dunk contest in the NBA. You'd like the stars to do it. You'd like the big name, because it's amazing. If somebody you know a little less in the NBA does a great dunk, or a star does a great dunk, it's amazing how that great dunk gets more appreciation or more cheers when it's done by the star, which shouldn't be that way, but it is. So, if you get a guy you don't know as well in the Home Run Derby knocking out a bunch of dingers that Aaron Judge would have done, if Aaron Judge does it, it's more of a wow factor. And again, that's just the way it is. I still watch it. They've tweaked these rules a number of times, no doubt about it. It's a one thing about we were talking about this as well, about you want to keep things moving, right? I mean, anything that drags the least bit, people are turned off on, right? They move away. And you can get this information so quickly as to how it's going live while you're not watching that you can just kind of tune into it during it if all of a sudden it's good. Because the one thing I'll say, even though if it's not a big name doing it, if there is a name out there that is smashing at just an ungodly amount of home runs, it's mesmerizing to watch because I still love the long ball. Or 2, if you get a great competition, right, where it's really coming down to the wire, on who's going to hit that final home run. And also just the fact that Pete Alonso and how much he loves this competition is almost funny. It's almost, he looks forward to this so much. So yeah, it's taken a hit. I really think probably the NHL All-Star Game still has the best as far as, forget the games. I don't care about the games really in any of them. No. But as far as the ancillary things, I think the NHL, quite honestly, still has the best things.
Okay, but we talked about this yesterday a little bit about the hot dog eating contest, about putting an asterisk next to a winner's name when the best of the best aren't in it. So a lot of people probably feel like we kind of need Judge and Ohtani in here to draw in maybe some more viewers and whatnot, and feel like maybe you don't put an asterisk next to somebody's name. But the question I have for you guys is, how do you get them into this? What's going to make them do it?
Nothing.
Probably nothing, really. They've got more money than God, so it's not like you can even, we talk about that with stuff like college football bowl games where the salaries are comparatively less or before non-existent. But yeah, you're not going to get these guys to do anything they don't want. It's a similar problem to the dunk contest where there is very little reward and really mostly risk for some of the best players to go out here and be a part of this. And you mentioned, Gunnar Henderson's 3rd right now in Major League Baseball with 27 home runs, but Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge 1 and 2, and markedly bigger stars and names, even though Gunnar Henderson's Baltimore Orioles are the best team right now. So yeah, it's a loss there. But Dad, you're right. I think looking at all of the competitions that come in these All-Star weekends, because we've talked about it, the games have been rendered somewhat useless by the fact that interleague play and so much of the television product around all of these sports has changed so much. Where before, these were your only opportunities to see a lot of the stars of the game come together. And for fans locally, it's still that. We had these conversations when people want to move certain All-Star festivities or certain celebrations of the sport. It is locally a great chance for fans to come in and check in with that. The rest of it for the game is all mush at this point. None of the players care about it, and the fans do a lot less too.
Right.
Amongst the competitions, though, it is interesting that the way something like the Home Run Derby, because you're right, when it still goes and it hums, and I think of the one with Julio Rodriguez, I forget if it was last year or the year before. Oh, no, it was the year before. It was when it was in Los Angeles, when you had J-Rod going up there, I believe against, was Albert Pujols was still in that, wasn't he? Was that his last year where he was going out and trying to crank it? But either way, while the details are fuzzy and it kind of undermines my point, it was exciting. And this, kind of like the 3-point contest in NBA's All-Star Weekend, can still be exciting because the dunk contest requires more creativity. It's an activity that can be elevated based on how good the person is at it. And so we've become nose blind to normal versions of that. We've reached too high. We've seen too much cool stuff in that because you put a cap on what can happen in the All-Star 3-point contest or in the Home Run Derby. This can still be exciting even without stars on its best day.
Yeah, it can. And Jesse, to your point, you know, if Shohei or Aaron Judge were in this thing, it's almost a no-win situation because if they win, everyone's like, well, you should. And God forbid if you don't win, then, you know, there's way more risk than reward, as Mike said earlier. So you're not going to get guys like in here. No, you're not going to be able to money whip them. They all have too much anyway. So I never know the answer to this. That's why they keep tweaking the rules. They're trying to find something or try and find a way that makes it more appealing to the fan because we are more in a microwave society. So how can it be quicker? You know, how can it be more efficient? How can it be better? Slam dunk contest the same way. Guys that are high flyers maybe don't want to come in because of the same thing. The expectation is if you win, you should win. And if you lose, how could you lose? You know, you're such a high flyer. So this is the opportunity for actually you go the other way and say it's an opportunity for lesser knowns to come in and become known a little bit more. You know, you don't have the top 2 home run hitters, but you have 3 and 4, right? With Gunnar and with Marcell Ozuna. You know, Gunnar is 3rd and Ozuna is tied for 4th in home runs. So, you know, you still have some guys that are hitting a lot. And for Gunnar, you wonder at one point if he's going to be done with it. Remember, he had 28 all of last year as the rookie of the year. He's got 27 already this year, but he's a youngster. He still loves this stuff. You know, you wonder at some point if he'll get tired of it and not do it as well, where Pete Alonso will not. He'll always do it. So Mike, I don't have an answer to this. I don't know. It's going to happen every year unless
we know the answer. Like the answer is it would be better if the stars were there. You're not going to get all of them there. And so the most you can hope for is enough people that still care about it for whatever reason, like Pete Alonso, and want to go and put on a show. Because like you said, home runs are inherently fun. Major League Baseball's got to win in that. We're in a day and age that values that more, and it's still an objectively cool thing, Jesse.
Okay, here's what I think. So, you know, we can't get the stars in there. Let's just throw a couple regular people in there, right? It's like that thing of like, we become desensitized to how impressive it is that these guys are just banging dingers out there. So let's just throw in some normies every now and again. Just give people a chance to really understand how difficult this is.
See, I don't want the normies in the home run derby because you're getting softballs thrown at you and it'd just be a lot of really like flaccid hits. Yeah. I want normies to have to stare down the all-star team starting pitching rotation. Like I want to see a plumber up there at the plate have Paul Skeens throw 105 right by his head and then see the reaction to that. That would be more impressive to me, Dad.
People would tune in for that. Did we just fix the problem? I mean, people would watch that. Must-watch television.
I agree, except now you're going to get a pitcher that has to throw heat when they don't normally have to throw heat, and they may not want to throw heat. But it would be great to see. I agree. That's what this is all about now, right? Well, it was kind of that way, you know, that show, Joes versus the Pros, right? You had the pros in there and whatever sport against the Joes who thought they could do the sport. That would be a perfect thing for, a Joe to come in there against a pro pitcher, you know, and see what would happen.
All right, hour number 2 here of GoJo and Golic on deck. We got plenty of great stuff to get to today. Looking ahead at friend of the program, Keegan Bradley, getting some great news ahead of the Ryder Cup coming up here. Novak Djokovic being a little baby in public, which is always fun. We'll get to all that stuff, but it's time to clear out some space. We have got a guest that we are fired up about here today. As we head right now, you heard me all spring barfing and talking about college lacrosse season, one of my favorite times of year. We still got lacrosse going on now. The Premier Lacrosse League is balling all summer long here, and we're delighted now to be joined by two-time national champion, 2024 Tewaaraton winner, Notre Dame program record career holder in career points, record for career assists, and the ACC Male Athlete of the Year this last year. And Pat Kavanaugh joining us now. And Pat, you're nominated for a freaking ESPY. How you feeling about that, brother?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. It's definitely exciting. Never really thought I'd be in this position, to be honest. But yeah, it's exciting, and I'm excited to go out to LA this week and see some of the most famous and successful athletes in the world that I never thought I'd have a chance to be in the same room as. So yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
So along those lines, well, we see all these award shows for the actors and stuff like that, and the nominees, but everybody seems ready with a speech. So are you ready with an acceptance speech? Do you have one ready to go should you win this?
No, as of now, I am not. I would assume the Heisman winner would win this award, just based off how big the fan bases are. But I don't know. Maybe I'll put something together. I'm not even honestly sure if they do every single award during the live show, because I think that would take a little too long. So I'm not even sure if they're going to be doing the best college athlete on the live show. I'm not really sure how that works, but I'm pretty sure they didn't do it last year. But we'll see. Maybe I'll put something together, but I don't know. I don't think there's a very good chance with the competition I'm going up against.
You mentioned all the celebrities and athletes and stuff out there. Is there anyone that you're actually excited to see or meet, or someone you've grown up as a fan of that you think might be there?
I mean, yeah, I saw Connor McDavid is up for 2 awards. I'm a huge hockey guy, so one of the best hockey players, arguably of all time already. So yeah, I think meeting McDavid, and if any other NHL guys are there, that would definitely be top of the list for me. And then obviously LeBron, just one of the best basketball players of all time. So he's so legendary. So seeing him would be pretty cool. And then I don't know, just everyone there. It's going to be really exciting. And yeah, I'm pumped to meet some of these guys.
Not many athletes can be asked this because they haven't achieved it. You not only won 2 national championships, you and your team, but you back-to-back as well. The first one in program history 2 years ago, and then another one this year. How different were they? Where you still ended up with the championship trophy, but how different was 1 and 2?
Yeah, I think they're very different. The first one was our program's first, so when that final horn sounded, it kind of felt like not a miracle, but I don't know. It's just the emotions were completely different. When the second horn sounded, it was kind of expected that we were going to win the national championship by everyone on our team and most of the lacrosse world, I think, because of how dominant we were the entire year. So to me, it would have been a huge letdown if we didn't win that second national championship because of how talented our team was. But the first one was kind of like just so unbelievably emotional that we finally were able to get over the hump of winning. And to do it against a team like Duke, too, had beaten us in 2010 in overtime, the national championship, in 2014 when Matt was playing at Notre Dame. So that was definitely insanely emotional. Not that the second one wasn't, because to do it back to back is incredibly hard and hasn't been done by a college lacrosse team in consecutive years and over a decade since Duke did it in 13-14. So yeah, 2 different emotions, but still, I don't think it's really hit me yet what we accomplished, especially the second time around.
Well, like you said, the second time around, you guys had time to plan the party for after the game in the middle of the third quarter here. I was processing my college football mortality during our ass whooping in 2012 in the title game. You guys were trying to figure out where you were going to get beers after because that game got out of hand quickly for a very good Maryland team there. What I want to ask is the important stuff. I know for a lot of you guys on the team, I saw a picture in the parking lot after the game. A bunch of you had championship tattoos from the first national championship that you guys had won. And I know there's a cool story behind that with the artist that you all went to. What's the strategy now with 2? Are you adding to the tattoo that you got? Do you get a whole separate one? Have you thought about this yet?
Yeah, I've thought about it a little bit. Haven't really come to a conclusion or decision yet. I don't know if you saw Marco Napolitano's. He's got like the entire golden dome on one of his quads. So I told him he's got to get now the entire touchdown Jesus on the other leg. But yeah, I haven't really thought about it. I think I would assume I just add 2024 under mine. I left some room for that. But yeah, I don't know. A whole nother tattoo would be tough. It's pretty painful. But it's good pain. It's worth it. So if I do get a second one, then maybe I'll just soak it, but I don't know. We'll see. I haven't really thought too much about it yet. Haven't really had time.
I was gonna say that's a pain that's worthwhile when it's for a title. How about for your coach? Kevin Corrigan is the winningest coach at one school in lacrosse history. And he's been there, I think, since '87, a couple years after I left school. That's how friggin' old I am, and he is, unfortunately, as well. You watch him, for those that just watch, he seems like this fire breather. I mean, you see him screaming on the sidelines, mad on the sidelines. What's it like on the other side when you're actually winning championships? And I have to imagine he's actually smiling and having a good time.
Yeah, I mean, he's just super intense. He's old school throwback coach, and that's why I love playing for him. Kind of reminded me of my dad a little bit. They're both got a couple screws loose. And he holds everyone to a really high standard, especially this year coming off a championship the previous year. We were kind of in uncharted territories. No one really knew how to act and how to hold themselves the entire year. And Coach Corrigan made sure that everyone was dialed in every day the entire year and kind of just preaching, getting better, doing the little things on a daily basis, and that'll translate to bigger things. And we had such a talented team that if we just bought into his philosophy and trusted in the standard he would hold us to every single day, then it would lead to hopefully a championship. And that's what happened. I'm really happy for him to finally get over the hump last year and then to do it back to back. It's so well deserved. He's been doing this at such a high level for his entire career, and I hope he keeps chasing him for the next few years.
Yeah, I was gonna say your younger brother Chris, who we'll get to. Now you're getting the chance with the Boston Cannons to play with your older brother Matt, who was in school when I was around there, and played with and won these championships with your younger brother Chris, who's going to now lead this team as they try and go back to back to back this upcoming season. Coach Corrigan is a guy that should have a statue on Notre Dame's campus before it's all said and done. I know they just put Muffet McGraw's up there with the women's basketball program, and based on what he's accomplished, Kevin Corrigan should absolutely have hardware on that campus before it's all said and done. I'll beat the drum as hard as anybody on that because it is more than deserved at this point in time. But Pat, I feel like we talk so much about the experience with you and your brother here. You also won the first Tuarton in Notre Dame's lacrosse program's history. It's the most valuable player in college lacrosse. For people that aren't familiar, it's college lacrosse's Heisman Trophy. And you were a finalist with your teammate and goalie Liam Entenmann, who just made his debut this last week with the Atlas and looked incredible in net with them. But what was it like going through that experience for that award with him, with your teammate?
Yeah, it was really special. I mean, me and Liam, we grew up playing on the same travel hockey team at like the age of 6 or 7 years old. So I've known him pretty much my entire life. We played travel hockey together for like 5-6 years. And then we ended up going to high school together, Chaminade, for 3 years. And then to be in the same class at Notre Dame was just made our friendship, took it to another level. And I lived with him this year for the first time of college. So we got even closer, and then been a captain with him the past 2 years. So yeah, being at that event with him was an incredible honor, and just doing it with him has become one of my best friends. It was incredible experience. And both of us kind of knew that we were probably one of us was going to win it, because we ended up winning the national championship. So it was a little weird on that aspect, but we were both super supportive of each other. Whoever won it, we were both going to be happy for them, because we were both deserving, in my opinion. And he had such a good career. It's just, I don't know, it's tough for a goalie to win that award. But if anyone was deserving of it, I think it should have, or it could have been Liam. Yeah, so it was an incredible experience. Very happy Liam was alongside me for it, and I don't think he was happier than anyone when they announced my name. So just shows how good of a friend he is.
What kind of
Very
roommate
cool.
was he like?
Oh,
What's up?
What kind of roommate was he? Is he like meticulous, clean guy here? Goalies are a little bit different. They're kind of head cases, and you sort of have to be. So what was he like as a roommate?
Yeah, I wouldn't say he was very clean. His room was a little messy. Not going to throw him completely under the bus, but you're welcome, Liam. But yeah, no, he was a blast to room with. Me and his rooms were right next door to each other, so we'd always stay up, have some good conversations leading up to games and stuff like that, and kind of talk through everything. So yeah, it was awesome room with Liam. Also room with 2 other grad students on the team, so we had a good little house going. And yeah, Liam's awesome, but he's still got a ways to go in the kitchen. Still figuring things out there. Still figuring out how to use some seasoning on his food.
Oh no, we've got a Dan Orlovsky situation, Dad.
yeah, we don't want that. So listen, the college legacy is set not only for you, but the family, while Chris continues it now. And I still say you guys could be the most decorated and dominant family in Notre Dame sports history. I'm trying to think of other brothers. There have been other brothers and families, father, sons that have played at different times, obviously, and brothers at the same time, but not many, if any, have accomplished what you guys have. And then it quickly moves on. You win that second title. You're the number 6 pick in the first round of the Boston Cannons. You're on to professional lacrosse, and you move on. I know you've played some. You've been injured as well for some of it. But I always like to ask the guys that go from college to the pro, biggest difference. You were at obviously the top of the pile in college, winning titles and being the best player. So now you go on to the professional level. What is the biggest difference for you, or biggest eye-opening moment for you when you go on to that next level?
I would say just the physicality and size, I guess. Everyone is likely the biggest, most athletic, and most skilled player from their college team, all combined into one roster. So just the collective level of skill and physicality and athleticism, all these rosters, there's not many roster spots. There's 8 teams and 19 guys make the game day roster. So it's just a collection of all the best guys from their college teams pretty much in the past however many years, decade or so. So yeah, and then I'd say the rules, the shot clock has been the biggest adjustment for me. 52 is second shot clock, and then when you win a face-off, it's 32. So say it's more similar to a basketball shot clock than a college lacrosse shot clock. So that was definitely a huge adjustment for me, especially playing a different position, been playing midfield these past few games. So that was definitely a tough adjustment that I'm still trying to get used to. But yeah, after the first weekend, I kind of got my feet wet and got used to the speed and physicality of guys. And yeah, I think I'm definitely getting adjusted at this point. But like you said, I've been injured and itching to get back out there for hopefully our next game.
You've been big brother before on the team, onboarding your younger brother, Chris. Now you're on the other end of that. Your brother, Matt, obviously not a guy you got to play with in college ever, but get to be teammates here with the Cannons. What's that been like? And has he had any advice for you? What's that experience so far been like being teammates with your other brother now?
Yeah, it's been awesome. I mean, I've been looking for going to Matt for advice my entire life. He's kind of been my idol and my role model, and I've followed his lacrosse career every single step of the way. So just getting dressed for our games and looking across the locker room and seeing Matt there, it's it's pretty wild and incredible. I can't help myself but just sit there and smile. It's just really never thought that would be possible. He's in his 9th year of pro lacrosse now, so I thought he would possibly be retired by the time I had a chance to play in the PLL, but happy he stuck it out and kept going. And I think the possibility of me playing on the same team with him was a huge motivating factor for him to keep playing. So I'm happy it all worked out. It's been awesome.
It's awesome to see, man. Fired up for you and the whole family. I'm sure your folks who have already been so proud throughout all of this. It's just given them another thing to really look at and take in and enjoy in this entire experience for you guys. Big picture, the PLL is something that has been growing and growing nonstop. For you, someone that's grown up around this sport and see the way that the professional game has evolved to this right now, how do you view the potential for the PLL to become even bigger than it already is now, and pro lacrosse to be something that's more and more of a real aspiration for so many guys growing up playing this game?
Yeah, I think for younger guys, it's at the youth level and high school level, it's becoming more of a motivating factor to have a good college career for sure. I think more than ever, just watching the guys on ESPN every week, you see how skilled they are and how serious everyone takes it. It's otherworldly skill that you can't really find anywhere in the lacrosse world. It's the best of the best. So yeah, and I was just in Boston this weekend. It was Boston's first homecoming weekend, and the crowd was absolutely electric. So one of the coolest atmospheres I've ever been a part of in Harvard Stadium up there in Boston. So I think as the PLL shifts to a true city base where there's a home and away schedule, and they could really build out the home fan bases in each city and have the players in those markets, I think the PLL will just continue to take off and give kids who are playing at a youth level dreams and aspirations to becoming a pro lacrosse player. So yeah, I mean, they've done a great job growing it to this point, and I think it's just going to continue to take off.
Yep, nope. The Rabel boys have done a hell of a job growing this thing to this point. Like you said, now it's fun to see the way it keeps evolving and involving more people. So I have generally been a Redwoods fan, considering for so long that was basically just the Notre Dame team of the PLL, but gonna have to make room in the closet for some Cannons gear now that the Kavanaghs, the first family of Notre Dame lacrosse, have taken over there. So I'll get that remedied here. But Pat, in the meantime, man, congrats on all the success. Enjoy the ESPYs trip this week. I hope that all goes well for you, and we're excited to keep watching you guys do your thing in the PLL all summer, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Pat.
All right.
Awesome stuff. Again, Notre Dame legend and now PLL member Pat Kavanaugh, kind enough to join us here, Dad.
So again, he said he doesn't think he has a chance in college athlete of the year. He's up against Jaden Daniels, the Heisman Trophy winner, obviously winning the Twart, and as you mentioned, is lacrosse's Heisman, and then the Naismith, two-time Naismith Player of the Year, Zach Edey, the basketball player from Purdue. So
he's beaten Zach Edey. He's beating Zach Edey. They wouldn't give that to Zach Edey. Pat Kavanaugh lit up the sports world this spring. This Notre Dame team was a dominant force of nature's fury. Jaden Daniels and the popularity of college football might get him. He ain't getting got, but no offense to Zach Edey, who's a great player, but he ain't getting got by Zach Edey.
You don't have to sell me on that. I'm with you. Zach, though, great career, two-time Naismith Player of the Year, but that's the power of this award. I wonder, and I don't know, have there ever been three brothers on a team? If Matt can hang on for year 10, is Chris done after this year? I think he only has one more year at Notre Dame. Could Boston draft him, and then all three of the Kavanaugh brothers would be on the Boston Cannons?
Listen, the strategy for Notre Dame of just recruit more Kavanaghs and see if they have any more siblings worked very well. So if you're a pro team, I would imagine draft Kavanaghs, also an incredibly viable strategy that they need to try and keep up. So yes, Matt, if you're listening, hold on and wait for Chris so we can do the coolest thing humanly possible. Coming up next, though, very cool thing for the friend of our program and the nation ahead of the Ryder Cup here on GoJo and Golic.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. We had some big news out of the golf world that did not involve the world #1 golfer getting arrested or a LIV PGA merger. Who would have thought, fellas? Keegan Bradley, friend of the program, being named the Ryder Cup captain for 2025. Very exciting stuff. We actually have some content from you guys with him last year. He talked about his disappointment at not making that Ryder Cup roster the year before and just how much he absolutely loves playing in this event.
Keegan, as we get into this, certainly part of the story is you not being selected for the team and right there on the cusp, and a lot of people thought you would be. So just if you can just take us through that before we get in and break this down of it's a selection process for people that may not know, and I don't know if anybody really would know that at this point, and just how that process went and just how bummed you were.
Yeah, I mean, I there was a point in my career where I thought I was going to play in every Ryder Cup every year, and then it got to the point where I sort of had resigned myself to I'm not going to ever play in one of these again. And I became okay with it. And then all of a sudden I'm back in a spot where I thought I was going to make the team. And I was so excited. And, you know, it was just a stressful end of the season waiting for that to figure out if I was going to be on the team. And I got the call that I wasn't. And I've gotten a few of those calls. I've gotten a call that I was on the team. It's brutal, but, you know, it's just motivation. I got to work harder, get better, and get on the next one.
Why does it matter to you and so many guys to be a part of this? Why is this so special to players?
It's almost impossible to express what it feels like to be out there. It's so different than anything we play in. And we all, as golfers, we all crave that locker room team atmosphere, and we just don't get it. And we're all super jealous of the guys that play sports where they can be together, and we have friends and we root for them, but we're playing against each other every week. If I'm watching, you know, Scotty Scheffler, and I'm on the Ryder Cup team, he's my teammate. I'm in my bones pulling for him. And it's just a fun week. And then you get these moments in the team room that we don't get as individual players. And it's really, really, really special.
So, Dad, looking at that, and Keegan was an awesome guy to visit with on that interview. We remember how gutted he was by that. I mean, he's the guy, and we talked to him about this in the larger time of that interview, still keeps the unpacked bag from the 2012 Ryder Cup that they lost that he vowed to not unpack until they come back and win. I understand the circumstances that led to this are different because, again, Tiger Woods saying that he wanted to focus on his role with the PGA's board and the LIV merger and all these things he has going on is certainly the biggest name in the history of golf. Having the captain now be the guy that seems to care about the Ryder Cup more than almost anyone is something I'm pretty excited about for a U.S. side that's lost 7 of the last 10 of these things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what you want. Someone who really buys into this type of golf. You know, all the golfers are a lot of them are friends, right? Certainly not everybody gets along with everybody, but a lot of them are friends, whether you're on the European team or the American team, because this only happens, you know, every few years. So you're talking about these guys are on the tour and they know each other and they're friendly and they hang out. Well, this is that competition. This is one of those where there should be cheering for every shot during the shot. I think it should be Happy Gilmore without question to really get that home field advantage. This year it's at Bethpage in New York, so it could be our home field, and you know we could use it, as you mentioned, losing 7 out of the last 10. But you know, I'm happy for Keegan. Again, for those that don't know this, the Tiger was supposed to be they wanted him to be the captain, but he had, as Mike mentioned, fulfill other duties with what he's doing with the tour and with the LIV merger. But Keegan's 38. He's the youngest since Arnold Palmer back in 1963. Arnold was a player captain back then. So Keegan, the youngest since Arnold. I think it's great, but I think it's great, Mike, because of what he talked about there and what you just said is he gets it. He buys into the rivalry and just what this means to be on this team, because this is not a team sport. The team is you and your caddy and your swing coach and your massage therapist and whatever. You know, this is not a team sport. Now you guys are all together and it is a team. You're truly rooting for one another. So, and the countries get behind it as well. I love it. I think it's fantastic. And I think Keegan has just such the great attitude for it.
No, couldn't agree more. Couldn't be happier for him. So hopefully we'll get to talk to him again in the lead up to that to see the total opposite end, because you saw when he was with us that dejection of not being selected and having to root it on. And so now getting to be in the driver's seat for this, very, very cool. But you mentioned the cheering that goes on during this. And Jesse, we got to talk about what happened yesterday with Novak Djokovic at Wimbledon, because this was one of the things that I always get on some of these, upper crust sports, golf, tennis, the ones that are all about decorum and sportsmanship and all of this stuff here when we had Joker addressing the Wimbledon crowd yesterday.
Yeah, so we have some sound here, but he's playing in Wimbledon, and let's just say he was not pleased with the crowd's reaction to him.
And to all those people that have chosen to disrespect the player, in this case me, have a good night. Good night, good night.
Okay, so fans were chanting Rune, which was the last name of his opponent. He took it as an opportunity. He took it as people were booing him. And he stands there and he says he's unbothered by the situation as he proceeds to be extremely notably bothered.
Yeah, I mean, Dad, this was ridiculous. And considering the fact that we both played a sport where as we're getting ready to be assaulted by a 300-pound person, 80,000 people yell as loud as they can to try and distract us. The notion that Djokovic, who occupies the worst, as Jesse brought out, archetype here of person who claims to not be bothered while simultaneously being more bothered than anyone's ever been, chastising the crowd for making noise here because he didn't feel loved up enough, as one of the greats who's been an infinitely hateable character in the sport, really brought me great joy yesterday to watch.
God, I mean, how aggravating was that? Dude, you're one of the greatest to ever do this. And this is like one of those, it's not about the money when it's about the money. I loved his last line. I played in much more hostile environments. Trust me, you guys can't touch me. Then why are you bringing it up? Seriously, all you do is you bring it up and you chastise. Yeah, you chastise them and then you say, but it doesn't affect me. Then shut up. I mean, seriously, he's played this guy before. Rune added he could see how some fans chanting his name could sound like a booing to Djokovic, given how long it's been since the same thing happened at their last meeting. So they played before and this happened before. I mean, seriously, could you sound, I don't even know what the word, any less classy, any more I probably don't want to use.
It's soft, I mean, is what it is.
Because he doesn't care when players are cheering for him. It's not like he wants the crowd to be silent.
God, disrespecting me on the center court. I mean, give it a rest. I mean, this is one of those country club sports where you get sometimes the privileged guy or man or woman, whatever. I don't want to just make it men. And oh my God, could this have sounded more petty? I hope he is getting ripped everywhere because he deserves it.
Tell you what, I really need to keep happening in this one right now. Coming up today, it's just starting now. So Carlos Alcaraz is playing Tommy Paul today. Carlos Alcaraz, the defending champion at Wimbledon after last year. Incredibly thrilling. I remember watching this, Dad, as we're getting ready to head to Tahoe this week for the golf tournament. Watching the Djokovic-Alcaraz final last year was gripping. And let me just say this, and shout out to Charlie Kravitz over at the Dominique Foxworth show, who has really got me hip to this. They do a great job talking tennis on that show. Carlos Alcaraz is one of the most exciting athletes in the world to watch do anything. And if you haven't watched him play tennis before, take some time out of your morning today, but then root like hell that we get a rematch of that final. And honestly, based off this, I'm always rooting for Alcaraz anyway in that matchup, but even more so now.
I mean, the person interviewing Novak was trying to say, no, they were saying Rune. He was like, no, I don't accept that. I've been playing a long time. I know all the tricks they were booing. Quit being so damn sensitive. You're one of the greatest players of all time. Stop being a baby.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield here. And we got plenty of great footy going on right now between the Euros going on, Copa America going on. There's a lot of great soccer being played by not the United States. The U.S. men's national team eliminated from a weak group in Copa America after the group stage. It's got people calling for Greg Berhalter's job all over again. And Dad, I don't want to be too big a cynic about this, because I think for both you and I, obviously purely casual soccer fans here, we've seen its growth in our country during our lifetime. For you, who's been covering sports for almost 3 decades now, watching the way that this has been talked about and covered inside the United States, the growth of Major League Soccer in this country, all these things I'm sure look drastically different from when you started this to now. But the thing that has been the consistent through line for me, and as someone who didn't get to watch much of Copa America or the U.S.'s time in it while I was over in Japan, I did get to digest it on the timeline. And I've always felt like there's this binary in the U.S. men's national team discourse publicly. And this happens a lot in sports, where when things go kind of well, all of a sudden it's U.S. soccer has turned the corner on the men's side, and now we're getting ready to compete and make that next step to go up with the world's elites. And then as soon as the thing happens, and the thing happened here, and we'll get to Mike Ryan, our buddy from the Dan Le Batard show, who finally blew a gasket on air talking about Greg Berhalter and this team, goes the other way, where it's, oh, we're never going to be where we want to be in this. This country doesn't take it seriously enough. And it appears there's never any middle ground here. So, Dad, as someone that's covered all of this a lot longer and seen this conversation span decades here, how have you taken this in, and do you think U.S. soccer does need to make a change at the top?
Oh, that I have no question. No, I have no answer to. I am a casual fan. I don't dive deep enough into knowing that. But what I will say, and what I can talk about, is the fact that I got into sports radio basically right after I retired in 94. By 95, 96, I was calling college football games, doing local radio in Arizona until 98 before I started the national radio at ESPN. And since that started until now, some of the same questions I have been asking and we have been asking is when? When will the men's team become a power? The women's team we know is, when will the men's team? And we've heard the same answers, that the junior leagues aren't good enough, that the development isn't good enough, like compared to the other countries. And the better athletes, as they get older, move on to different sports, because, a lot of them pay more in the pro sports. So they move on to other sports, and you lose some of the better athletes. So that's the one thing I can say, is the questions I was asking in 1996, 97, 98 are the same questions asking now. Now, we certainly have better players and better athletes, but we see that in all sports, that players are bigger, faster, stronger, better, but that doesn't mean that they're better at their sport. That doesn't mean that basketball's better or football's better or baseball's better, even though the athletes themselves are better athletes. So that's the one thing I can say. I can't dive deep into this, but I can say we've asked the same questions for over 20 years to close to 30 years that I have been doing this, on why the men's side of this cannot become an international power.
Mike Ryan, our friend and executive producer, I think that's his title now. I don't know. That keeps changing a lot over the last year. Mike Ryan of the Dan Le Batard show blew a gasket on this. Notable, incredible supporter of soccer, U.S. soccer. Had finally had enough. I think this was yesterday. Take a listen to him lose his mind. He's got an answer for the Greg Berhalter question.
I am asking you, dude. You need to realize that this is a sham, an embarrassment, and they, in all likelihood, brought you back to avoid a lawsuit. So do the right thing, walk away, because you are not that guy. 2026 is around the corner. This team doesn't have qualifiers to actually find their form. What are you going to do that you haven't done in the last 5 years? We've seen enough. We've seen enough. Red card, Tim Weah. Oh, hard luck. You lost to them twice in 12 months, pal. Get out of here. You stink.
So mincing words about that. Now, and I know the question that comes next here, and it's been so funny. Jurgen Klopp, who just finished up his time over with Liverpool, wishes the Americans on, I think, Instagram a happy 4th of July, and everyone wets themselves like we have a real chance to get Jurgen over here to actually be the coach. I don't know who the answer is there, Dad. Mixing up the bag might help. But again, to your point, it always seems like the real answers I see from people that follow this team and program much more closely is it is from the grassroots development level on that the U.S. still does not match the energy and commitment of its foreign counterparts. And until that changes, we're really not going to have much difference.
So that's what I am a novice at this. I truly would like to ask a Mike Ryan or somebody deep in the soccer community what they think the answer is. How many times are you changing the coach? I say the same thing about sports. It's more on the people on the field. I don't care what sport you're playing than the coach or the manager or whatever. While some are better than others, I get it. We have been dealing, as I said now, for close to 30 years. At the end of the day, it's the players on the pitch, is it not? So what increases the ability there? And that's where I keep saying I'm asking the same questions, and I like to keep asking the same questions to the soccer people out there, the analysts, the former players who are covering this. What puts us in the upper echelon right now? The World Cup's in 26, and we're already in it because it's in the United States. So we've automatically qualified. It's in Canada, Mexico, and the United States. So we're already in it. But, that doesn't mean anything. You're crossing your fingers hoping that we can perform well. But that's still my question. What can change from the grassroots level up to make us, from an international standpoint, one of the better teams?
Well, Christian Pulisic, the big star on the U.S., posted on his Instagram story being like, better days are coming, U.S. fans. Like, you deserve better than this, which is kind of a direct hit to Greg Berhalter. So at that point, Berhalter's like, he's got to go. And then, like you said, they got to increase the talent on the field. But when your biggest talent is being like, essentially, the coach has got to go, you lost the locker room.
Yep. Well, in the meantime, let's talk about the grown-ups that are still left playing here. It's time for Cash It or Trash It, presented by DraftKings. Stay tuned because you'll hear more about DraftKings and all it has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours. We've got the remaining odds for the teams left in Copa America and in the Euros coming up here. And now, like I said, I've been on vacation. I haven't digested a ton of this necessarily, but what I can tell you is what we've got is very interesting popping up in the Euros, where if you look, Spain on DraftKings Sportsbook, plus 190. Here is the favorite to go and win, followed by England at plus 250, France at plus 275, and the Netherlands at plus 400. We have got Spain versus France coming up. And one of the funny things that has happened, and I saw Chris Vanini from The Athletic tweet this the other day, that France is heading into the semifinals of the Euro 2024 with 0 open play goals in 5 games. And our beautiful friends over at the College Football Sickos Committee have basically dubbed them as Euro's Iowa football. And if you're an American fan and you've seen the wonder that is Iowa football, that is completely devoid of offense, that's a punt fiesta, and you look right now, the goals that have come up for France during Euro 2024. An own goal against Austria, a 0-0 draw against the Netherlands, penalty kick against Poland, Belgium own goal. They beat Portugal in penalty kicks here. It has been a remarkable tour de force of an ability to find the back of the net in unconventional ways, much the same way that Iowa football ends up scoring on special teams or on defense. And so, Dad, looking ahead to the bets for this right now, you can get the draw on this one, France and Spain, at plus 175, and that seems like free money at this point if you're going to back France.
Oh, without question. That's where you got to go, right? That's incredible. To go that far in the tournament and not have one open goal, that's pretty wild. So I'll go there. That's where I'm going to cash.
There you go. Will Saliba, arguably the best defender in the world right now. Maybe at some point you get Kylian Mbappe going out here with the face mask and actually having a real showing as the best player of the world. And that is GoJo and Golic talking soccer right there. So we'll fix U.S. soccer another day. But coming up next, let's look ahead to a potential new NFL draft location here, some NBA draft nuggets, and of course, it wouldn't be a day that ends in Y on this show if we didn't mention hot dogs. All of that as we finish up the show here next on GoJo and Golic. All right, guys, time to finish off the show the way we always do. This, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to send everybody into the rest of their day. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review our show. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network. If you miss us there, you can catch the best of GoJo and Golic wherever you hear VSiN on the radio from noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. And if you miss us there or any of our great guests, thank you to Saints special teams captain JT Gray for joining us early in the show, talking about the upcoming season for the NFC South contender, and Notre Dame lacrosse legend and current Boston Cannons member Pat Kavanaugh, kind enough to join us earlier. If you missed those, check them out wherever you get your podcasts, or available right after we get done here on the DraftKings YouTube channel. And guys, let's start off with this. The NFL draft has taken to barnstorming for a while now. It's been an incredible coup for the league as something that continues to draw popularity, but also for a lot of places that aren't going to get a Super Bowl bid either because they don't have the new stadium or because they're in an area that's cold that shouldn't host the Super Bowl. Anyway, it's given them something to shoot for. And now we saw, courtesy of the Sports Business Journal yesterday, that the 2027 NFL draft bid for Washington, D.C. includes plans to host portions of the event at the National Mall. So, Dad, how do we feel about that? Our nation's capital, where nothing weird or awful or potentially devastating could happen this fall, could potentially host the NFL draft right in the middle of all the action by the monuments.
Oh, I think it's going to be fantastic. I really do. This is for 27, you said. Next year, it's in Green Bay. The year after that, 2026, it's in Pittsburgh. And then it's going to be in Washington. They haven't had a miss yet, have they? Unless I missed one. Have they had a miss? And this is one of the great things that the league has done, is to barnstorm the draft. It has been absolutely successful everywhere it's gone. Hundreds of thousands of people show up, even in the driving rain in Nashville the one year, people still showing up out there. So, yeah, this is going to be a win, an absolute win in the most popular sport in the country that basically it would take a lot to hurt them in any way. This has been one of the things that has been fantastic, and it will continue to be fantastic, in my opinion, no matter where they put it. You know, put the draft in a city and people will come.
This is going to be tough.
To see if they'll be able to match the energy. Yeah, I was going to say, Jesse, walk me through this, because the energy here feels a lot different than Detroit, that was an absolute zoo last year. The draft in Nashville that we were at back when we were at ESPN that set all sorts of attendance records here. Jesse, how do you see this going?
Well, it's a national parkland, technically, if they want to do something on the mall. So there's going to be a lot of logistical things. And then just doing something in D.C. that close to, like, the White House. And I mean, I'm just thinking what a security nightmare this is going to be. Like, truly an actual nightmare. So I don't know how this is going to play out.
Going to be packed. That's my prediction. Going to be as packed as all the other ones. People will figure it out. They'll get there.
They might not be allowed to pack it the way that you could otherwise.
I was going to say, I don't think it's going to top the numbers from a place like Detroit. I think the passion there is going to be different than in Washington, based on the logistics and based on just, again, the tenor of the fan base.
Security, too. They might just be like, we can't have that many people.
Well, all right, we're having two different conversations then. If you're saying it's limited to 200,000 people, there's going to be 200,000 people. That's my point. If it's limited to an amount, that amount is going to be there. And I'm not going to sit there and say they're not going to be as passionate of fans as Detroit or Nashville. I completely disagree with that.
That's for sure.
Let me just say, if they put a number to this, that number will be reached. And they will be fanatic fans just like normal. I think it will be a hit no matter where it is.
It would be nothing. Let's put it this way. It wouldn't be an appropriate event in D.C. if it were not covered in bureaucratic red tape that they had to work through to make this all happen. So excited to watch that. Even more excited to actually watch that, Jesse. 37 minutes ago, I believe now, we got, and this is a rare phenomenon where a long time coming sequel to an all-time great movie actually has us excited right now.
Yeah, Wake Up Babe, the Gladiator 2 trailer just dropped, and woo! We got some hotties dressed as Roman soldiers. I will be tuning in. But, I mean, you guys, the excitement level over a sequel, this is reaching fever pitch, and I gotta say, huge names obviously in this one. And Pedro Pascal, the internet's boyfriend, also Paul Mescal, who you guys were like, who's that? Also the internet's boyfriend that apparently you guys don't know about. Cannot wait to see this movie. And there's a lot of talk about sequels and like, oh, why touch a classic? But I mean, everybody's going to go see this movie, right? There's no chance it's not wildly popular. Good reviews, bad reviews, I don't care. Everyone's going to see it.
Gladiator, the original movie, dropped in 2000. It was the first R-rated movie I ever saw. And I remember my dad took me and my brother to see it in theaters. It was like one of those coming of age moments where it was the first movie I have a concrete memory of that happening and the lasting impact it's had. I think one of the, 4 or 5 greatest movies of all time, Russell Crowe as Maximus and this former general turned slave taking revenge against Caesar. Dad, seeing this preview right now, the ultimate dude's rock movie. It looks like it is going to be an absolute blockbuster in a day and age where that's a lot harder to come by. And so this is the rare instance where I'm incredibly supportive of this sequel. As we heard from Jesse, Pedro Pascal, who I would say the internet's daddy, and this Paul Mescal, who I thought was a made-up name, apparently some of the other hot young newcomers on the scene here. So I learned something every day.
And hey, for my generation, Denzel Washington is in this. Washington is in this, man. Right. From my era, he and Tom Hanks, 2 of the best ever from my era to be on the big screen or TV, quite honestly. There are 2 movies I never pass by if they come on. And they're movies like this, 300 and Gladiator. And now 300 had a sequel, Rise of the Empire, which wasn't as good as the original. I can't wait to see what this is going to be. I think it comes out in November, but it always brings up, Mike, you've seen 300. I don't know if you have, Jesse.
I have. Yeah.
But it always brings up to me, in the octagon, Maximus or Leonidas, who wins?
Leonidas.
Yeah, Leonidas is giving him work, man. Spartans are built different. I think that one's pretty cut and dry, actually. The Spartans are just, I think, a different class of warrior altogether.
Yeah.
That movie was so good. Yeah, Gerard Butler against Russell Crowe, right? But I agree. I think it would be Leonidas. But this trailer looks phenomenal. I cannot wait for this to come out.
And I feel like because Gladiator is such a classic movie, they did the right thing by waiting so long for a sequel.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like so much time has passed. Now we're just thirsty for more.
Pedro Pascal also has plenty of fighting experience as the Viper from Game of Thrones. It's all coming together. The trailer looks insane. It's the perfect upgrade of technology. Ridley Scott still at the helm for this, so can't wait for that one. Speaking of box office, Jesse, let's get to the third here and talk more hot dogs.
Yeah, so we're past like the hot dog competition eating portion of our 4th of July festivities, but true American heroes like Joey Chestnut, they never stop serving their country. That's exactly what he did. Buffalo Wild Wings tweeted that if he eats 200 boneless wings, they're going to extend their all-you-can-eat promotion. So the people were on the edge of their seats. And of course, Joey Jaws delivered. He did it in just 38 minutes. Holy God. I can't even fathom putting down that many wings if you gave me 24 hours.
Honestly, boneless buffalo wings, Dad, are one of the things I feel confident. Ice cream and fries I could eat in perpetuity until the end of time, world without end, amen. Boneless buffalo wings feel like another one of those things because you don't have to go through all the machinations of the bone-in version there. So I don't know if we get to the wilt picture here like Joey did, but how do you feel like you'd fare against the boneless wings?
The boneless things, the biggest wing job I ever did, me and my 2 brothers were at a place that was a quarter beer night and all the wings you could eat. I had in the 90s and both my brothers had in the 110s and 120s. And by the way, we were friggin' hammered. We drank so much beer. Boneless certainly will go down better and go down a little quicker, but still 200. I mean,
38 minutes.
I'd love to hit
38 minutes.
It's crazy. I'd like to hit 30 or 40.
I tell you what, Joey Chestnut scoring a lot of points publicly. Donates over $100,000 to the troops eating hot dogs on the 4th of July. He's got the Kobayashi Netflix battle coming up here, and now he's extended the all-you-can-eat boneless buffalo wings at Buffalo Wild Wings until August 14th. He's given the people what they want. We hope we've done the same. If we have, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review us. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow.